Hi everyone, my name is Daisy Manzano, and I will be doing weekly vlog discussions based off of two books. Well, the first one is The Rhetorical Act, or RA, and the second is Reading Pop Culture, or RPC. These I have weekly assignments, so each week I will be uploading. The first one I will be discussing today is The Rhetorical Act, Chapter 2. So in Chapter 2, I first examined that there's such thing as two rhetorical acts, basically saying we want to be critics and be able to properly describe, interpret, and evaluate rhetorical acts so that way we can determine if they either succeed or fail. We want to be critics, but not in a way where we come off harsh or attack the speech or the speaker. We want to give something called specialized feedback. So we must be able to examine many different types of information, such as news reports, advertising, entertainment programs, as well as political debates and speeches. And there are two important functions of criticism, and the first one is to serve as a form of consumer protection. So if we can determine elements of rhetorical action that are effective or ineffective, criticism functions can then further provide guidelines for speaking and writing. We must first be able to read rhetorical acts in a certain way called descriptive analysis, which is basically being able to read them analytically to focus on attention. So there's a lexicon or a list of terms that is essential to descriptive analysis, and those include purpose, the thesis, and purpose, which is the thesis and the response desired by the writer. 2, the audience, the receivers of the rhetorical act. 3, persona, the roles adopted by the persuader in making the argument. 4, tone, the writer's attitude towards the subject. 5, evidence, which is simply support material for the argument claims. 6, the structure, which is the way the material is organized to gain attention from readers. And finally, strategies, which is an adaptation of the 6 that I just listed. So these 7 terms also identify the choices and decisions the speakers and writers must take when they are going to prepare and deliver their rhetorical acts. So all these elements are key ways when trying to understand how and why an act succeeds or fails. So that is a summary of Chapter 2 of the RA. The next book I will be talking about is RPC, Chapter 1. So in Chapter 1, there is 6 short narratives about different subjects and topics written by different writers, and these are all different books and stuff. So the first one is called Overselling Capitalism. The total is probably about 45 pages of all reading in Chapter 1. So the first one is called Overselling Capitalism with Consumerism by Benjamin Barber. So Barber's story is basically an outline of how our society is getting worse as time passes. And after reading his piece, I was able to analyze and able to understand what and why he was trying to say this. So he goes into saying that we need to do more for those that actually need it and take less time worrying about the consumers who just want a better version of what they currently have. Consumers being typically more young adults, my generation personally, and even older adults as well. He also points out that many people in today's society have worried about their appearance more than their actual health, while there's Africans that don't have a cure for HIV, and society is becoming corrupt partially due to consumers pleasing those who already have the most. And we need to take a step to be less selfish and more aware. So that's that piece. Our second piece is called With These Words I Can Sell You Anything by William Lotz. So he focuses on advertisement in our society today. His main concern is how many advertisers use these things called weasel words to give off false sense of what products and companies actually mean when they're trying to sell their product. So he gives a list of what these weasel words may include, and they are help, virtually spotless, new and improved, acts fast, and like magic. So these words basically, buyers will think they mean one thing when they really mean something else. He does this to prevent readers from seeing a false hope for ads when buying a product, and he wants us to use critical thinking to be able to uncover what the words actually mean and represent. So that's our second piece. Our third piece is by Roland Barthes, and it is called Toys. So he describes toys as he calls it microcosm of the adult word. I don't know if I said that right. Which is basically saying that toys are a small version of what reality is really like, and how they are somewhat of a preparation for the next generation. He gives off a strong argument that toys are deceiving because it teaches those playing with them to be users of the toys and not creators, and everything that the users want is given to them and no effort has to be put in to get it. Toys eventually will not be popular and will end up just being thrown away. So that was that piece. It was a short one. But our fourth piece is called Craving the Other Side by Soleil Ho. In this story, she tells us that she's a native from Vietnam, and when she first moved here to the United States, that she didn't really like it because she felt out of place with everything, especially her food, her traditional Vietnamese food. She would get made fun of it when she was younger in elementary school for the way it smelled. But once she hit college, it turned out to be a different story. Everyone loved her Vietnamese food and always wanted to eat it with her because they wanted to learn the traditional way to eat so they could be different and go and tell other friends that they were traditional Vietnamese eaters. All her friends wanted to think they were fitting in because they were different, because they knew how to traditionally eat Vietnamese food. So in society, everyone feels as if they need reassurance from others to be considered cool and to be accepted. There's no longer an originality with that because everybody is doing that. So that was our fourth one. Our second to last one is called The Praise of Chain Stores by Virginia Postro. So this one basically almost bashes chain-owned stores and brands for pushing out originality. She writes that there are no longer traditional little stores that make a town or a city different, and she states that is why the United States is one of the most boring places to come tour and visit. So there's a Starbucks on every corner. She's saying you can go into different towns and find the same exact thing. Everywhere is the same, but just a different location. And she also goes into saying how it is easier now to move those who work for those corporations because they can take their family there and work for the same job and get the same amount of pay. They're just moving somewhere else. So that was our second and last piece. And our last and final piece is called The Hard Shell, Advertising in America by Bill Bryson. So this one was a long one. It was the last one. But in summary, he writes about the advertisement industry and how crucial it can be, how critical it can be, critical and crucial. There are many guidelines that a brand must follow when trying to sell their product. So when advertising first began, it gave producers a lot of anxiety because it became a make or break for them. Either they got into the selling industry or they didn't, and after that there was no chance. So companies even had the risk of losing their trademark just due to the way that they decided to name their company. So for example, Yo-Yo no longer has a trademark because the way they chose to do the lowercase yo -yo. Every aspect had to be taken into consideration or else it was pointless for the companies, and it made it hard for those companies to be original. So that was the last piece of RPC, and that was final for my vlog 1, but next week we will be focusing on, I believe, chapter 3 of the Rhetorical Act and chapter 2 of Reading Pop Culture.